recap now on that breaking news coming out of Switzerland this morning. In the Crans-Montana area, there was a bar explosion. Police have confirmed overnight around 1:30 a.m. Local time. Swiss authorities say around 100 people have been injured. Tens of people are presumed dead, as press conferences being held right now by police over there in Switzerland. These are the latest lines. The police say this is being considered a fire and not a terrorist attack. So police confirming this is being considered an explosion and a fire, not a terrorist attack. Swiss authorities say some of the victims are from other countries. Of course, this area is popular with British tourists. There's no confirmation that British tourists are part of the are a number of the victims, but police have confirmed that victims are presumed to be from other countries. 10 helicopters and 40 ambulances have been mobilised.
And we understand that the fire began at around midnight UK time, of course, just after the Swiss will have celebrated New Year. I mean, an absolute tragedy, Cameron. We understand that it was an explosion inside, so obviously, completely destructive for those there, and we don't know the full casualty list yet. But I mean, the response to this does sound incredibly rapid. There are lots of eyewitness testimonies of multiple ambulances arriving very, very quickly as a no-fly zone over the area. But, what a tragedy for people there celebrating on holiday, bringing in the new year.
Absolutely. It's meant to be a fresh start, and unfortunately 2026 has started in tragedy for the people caught up in this incident. There's been footage on social media of the bar very much ablaze and on fire. It's been reported that the explosion took place in the Basements, which is a big open-plan bar in this particular area. More details coming out of this police press conference that you're seeing on your screen. Swiss authorities say the Valais Hospital intensive care unit is now full and patients are having to be transferred elsewhere. The police are saying that the majority of the around 100 injured are seriously injured. So this is presumably quite a major incident. The police press conference, as you can see on your screens, still going on. So lines are coming into us every single moment.
And of course, an explosion in a contained space, unbelievably destructive. We understand it wasn't terrorism, it was not a bomb, but it would have had the same impact as a bomb in that contained space underground. I mean, the only thing you can say is the Swiss are very well prepared for this kind of event. Their emergency services, their infrastructure is world class, and I'm sure they'll be doing their absolute best to treat all the injured. But a hugely worrying time for people with relatives in that region.
Absolutely, and just so we know, it's the bar called La Constellation in Crans-Montana area of Switzerland, and we can now be joined by the journalist James Jackson. James, well, I want to say good morning. Of course, it's a particularly tragic morning for what has happened overnight. James, what more can you tell us?
So we've just heard from the Swiss president, which is a post which changes regularly, that they're going to delay the traditional New Year's speech. That's how serious this event is affecting the Alpine nation. So what we've heard is that an explosion took place in the basement. Police say they don't know what the cause is. They're still investigating. They don't think it was terrorism. Probably related to pyrotechnics, and there have been reports of at least 10 dead. Now, actually, some Swiss media have reported up to 40 dead, but we don't have any confirmation. And there's also been reports that local hospitals have been overwhelmed by people who have been burnt, who have been injured. So this is really something very shocking happening when people are trying to have fun and ring in the new year. There are reports that took place at the same time as a concert. So there were about 100 people inside the bar at the time. It has a capacity for 300 in a ski town at 1:30 a.m. local time. That'll be 12:30 in UK time.
And we understand that this bar, La Constellation, is in a very remote region. Will that affect the emergency services response?
It may make it harder to get to hospital, but as you mentioned yourself, Switzerland is a country that's very well prepared for these kind of things. They have a lot of drills. Now, there's already been helicopters delayed and deployed. We've seen Airbus helicopters deployed, and people have made it to hospital. Lots of people have gone to hospital, actually, with reports coming in that the hospitals have been overwhelmed. So I think Switzerland is dealing as well as they possibly can, according to all the preliminary reports we've seen, of this horrific accident, this tragedy that's happened while people were trying to enjoy their New Year's party.
And James, as you say, the hospitals are overwhelmed. The Valais Hospital intensive care unit is now full. Police have confirmed that some of the victims are from other countries. And of course, this ski resort is very popular with Brits.
Absolutely. If you look at the map, it's very close to the French border. This is an area where Brits and holidaymakers from around the world come in. So it's absolutely credible that there would have been Brits injured in this. We really don't know very much so far. Of course, the police's website has actually gone down from the local canton because so many people are trying to access information. There's currently a press conference going on right now, so we might be able to get more information shortly.
James Jackson, thank you very much for updating us on that. And of course, we will bring you updates to Britain's Newsroom throughout the morning. We're now joined by a Swiss journalist, Melissa Muller, who joins us from Zurich. Melissa, good morning. What a tragic start to the new year. How are Swiss people reacting to this awful story?
I'm sure Swiss people are in shock. I myself woke up not expecting that. Switzerland is usually considered a safe country. It's not known for having big fire incidents like that. It's not really happened a lot in the past. So there's a lot of shock. But also, I think, trust in the Swiss authorities because they deal with tragedies usually quite well and quite thoroughly.
Melissa, what is the health and safety record like for areas such as this, these kind of high-class ski resorts? Because there's reports that the fire was in the basement of this quite upmarket bar. So what kind of health and safety record do they have?
Usually health and safety standards are quite high in Switzerland. There was a witness account in one of the Swiss media which said that there was only one exit, which is, of course, it could be a reason why there is such a high death and injury toll.
Now, Melissa, you said that trust in the authorities is high. I visited Switzerland last summer and I have to say the infrastructure, the level of organisation is incredibly impressive. It has to be one of the best countries in the world for the role of the authorities. Do you think that the rapid response to this emergency with the dozens of ambulances attending was characteristic of that Swiss competence?
Definitely. Whenever there's big fires or big natural catastrophes, usually we see authorities quickly ramming up whatever they have. There's a lot of helicopters. They're very skilled with that due to the infrastructure of the mountains, the natural geography. So usually, yes, I would say people have trust that there is good responses from the emergency systems.
Police have said that the Valais Hospital intensive care unit is now full and patients are having to be transferred elsewhere. Are hospitals in ski resorts designed to deal with this kind of incidents? Because presumably they're used to people breaking their leg on a ski slope, but not dealing with a major fire where hundreds of people are seriously injured or 800 people are seriously injured.
I'm not too sure about the capacity of the specific ski location, but in general, yes, as you said, there's a lot of injuries usually. So they are definitely prepared for people coming in with injuries. And as I said, they have quite a good helicopter infrastructure. So if there's injuries, they could be quickly flown into different hospitals. But I'm not too sure how well prepared the specific hospital in that specific area would be for casualties from the fire, which is, of course, not something that happens usually.
Now, of course, 27 years ago now, in 1999, there was a horrific fire in the Mont Blanc tunnel between France and Italy, not all that far from where this tragedy has happened. A lot of lessons were learned from that incident. Of course, Swiss authorities were not involved with that. It was the French and the Italian. Do you think these kind of alpine situations have... there's been a lot of learning from those disasters by the emergency authorities in recent years?
I mean, again, just commenting on Switzerland, I'm not sure how it is in comparison to what was happening back then, but in general, I would say the Swiss authorities, they do react very quickly. They do react very well. They have a lot of helicopters. There was 150 emergency staff. There was 40 ambulances, more than 10 helicopters bringing people to hospitals. So I think Switzerland in general is a very well-prepared country. Of course, no one can see a tragedy like this happening, and it's not something that happens usually. So I think any place in the world would be overwhelmed with dozens of dead and 100 injuries.
Melissa, has there been any statements from politicians in Switzerland?
Yes, so the president of the Swiss Confederation, Guy Parmelin, postponed his New Year's speech because of to show solidarity with the victims. So yes, the politicians have been commenting on this, and of course it's a big tragedy. But what political consequences this might have, everything just happened very recently, so it's not sure what more will follow. Yeah.
And we do understand now from Stefan Ganser, who is a member of the Valais local government, that it wasn't an explosion that started the fire, which was as initially reported, but that the fire quickly erupted, causing the whole building to go up in flames suddenly. I mean, I'm sure this will be a very fast-moving investigation, but do you think there is a possibility that this fire was started deliberately?
I definitely know that the authorities said there's absolutely no chance that it would be a terror attack. So whether it was still a deliberate fire, that's unclear. The investigation is still ongoing, so I wouldn't like to comment on that. But right now it seems more like an accident situation, which of course could change. We would have to rely on the public information for that.
Melissa, of course, it's a very popular area with tourists from a number of countries, and police have said that some of the victims are from other countries. How much of a coordination is there, do you think, that there's going to be between the Swiss authorities, Italian, French, and perhaps British as well?
Usually they cooperate quite well, so I think they should all be working together pretty well. And yeah, I see. I know that there were some tourists that were also part of that were victims of the fire. It's not clear which nations they come from yet. It's not clear how many tourists, how many foreign nationals were affected. But I think there probably will be some court cases against the owners of the locality, especially. But yeah, we will see. Right now, there's no public information on that, so I would prefer to rely on public information.
Melissa Muller from Zurich, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, joining us now in the studio is Andy Williams and Piers Pottinger, political commentators. I want to say Happy New Year, but of course it's such a tragic incident that's taken place in Switzerland. Andy, your thoughts first of all?
Well, as you say, tragic. There's not really much more you can say. Thank goodness it's not some awful terrorist incident, or so it seems. It's just the last thing you would expect to happen on New Year's Eve. Very, very sad.
And Piers, sadly, a very high death count and possibly to increase, because we understand that the majority of those injured are seriously injured.
Yes, it sounds dreadful, and obviously one's thoughts go to all the victims and their relatives and friends. But it's a small place, Crans-Montana, very beautiful. It's most famous because not so much for the skiing, which is obviously there, but it's the golf course, and it's on the European tour. It's one of the most popular events on the European tour because it has such spectacular scenery. And the golf course, the last hole goes right into the center of the town, and a lot of people have some of the apartments around. Typically in European golf courses of this stature, there are a lot of expensive apartments around there which are bought by members of the club, and many of them overseas, and many who will be there for skiing as well. Of course, that's why it's very popular as a fairly expensive place to go, as everywhere in Switzerland is. Mind you, everywhere in Britain's pretty expensive at the moment.
Yeah.
But no, it's a tragedy, and all one can hope is that the the hospitals are looking after the victim, the injured, as well as they possibly can. And I'm sure the Swiss, being super efficient, will be doing everything they can, as best they can, in this terrible situation.
Well, yes, and you say that, Piers. The Valais Hospital, which is the nearest one to where the incident took place, their intensive care unit is now full, and patients are being transferred elsewhere. Of course, Andy, when you hear that there's been an explosion in a Swiss ski resort, a lot of people's minds immediately jump to terrorism. Of course, police have ruled that out absolutely with no hesitation. But it does lead to all this speculation, doesn't it? Everyone wants to know what has caused this fire and what caused it to accelerate so much.
It does, and I'm afraid, I was saying to Piers off air, I do think there are some people who almost want that to be the case because they want an easy explanation and they want there to be that sort of narrative, and I'm very, very glad that that is not the cause, but that will be obviously no consolation to the victims' families or anyone involved. I mean, it's just a truly awful thing to have happened. And as you say, sort of in the last place you would expect. I remember when there was an awful nightclub bombing in Bali, which I think was a terrorist attack. But again, you just don't think of these sorts of places as where where something like this might happen.
And Piers, we've been hearing from the Swiss journalist you've just spoken to, Melissa Müller, that trust in the authorities is very high in Switzerland, and of course they are very competent.
Yeah.
That is, of course, reassuring that probably the response was the best in the world that it could have been.
Well, I imagine, as I just said, I think they will, they are incredibly efficient, and I'm sure they'll be handling it as best they can. The trouble is, on New Year's Eve, when there's the parties in bars or nightclubs around the world, and these kind of incidents, I'm afraid, do happen, particularly when pyrotechnics are involved in bands playing. More and more they use these pyrotechnics, sometimes without the best understanding of health and safety, as we would call it here. But I think the problem is with an incident like this, it needs to do is wait and see, pray for all the victims, and then let's see what the causes were and what needs to be done, if anything, as a result of that.
It's interesting what you say about fireworks, Piers, because a friend of mine was in Melbourne for New Year's Eve, and they went to a drive-in cinema. A firework sort of went off the wrong way, hit something, caused a huge fire. Luckily, no one was injured, but, it's not surprising that these incidents happen, unfortunately.
Just to recap, for those of you just tuning in, before we move on to other stories, in the past hour we've had an update from Swiss authorities about the fire in the Crans-Montana area, the resort town in the Swiss Alps. Several dozen people are presumed dead. We think around 40, according to police. At least 100 injured. Several different nationalities are involved, and work to identify those victims are ongoing. Most of the injured have significant injuries with severe burns. 10 helicopters, 40 ambulances and 150 responders have been sent to the scene, and the emergency operation continues. The Valais Hospital's intensive care unit is full, and they are having to transfer patients to specialist burns centres in the country.
Well, we will, of course, bring you the latest on that story, but we've got the panel with us. Let's move on to a different story, a UK story in The Telegraph.